start recording, please?
She did.
Okay, great. Good evening. Is Andrew on? Andrew Painter?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, I am here.
Great. Andrew, if you would like to take it away, we're doing Isaac Newton Square. And for new people on the committee, we have had Isaac Newton before. One block has been approved, a multifamily. And Andrew, I think you'll go over it and give us a synopsis.
I certainly will, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. This is a bit of out of order presentation because usually applicants appear once they've actually filed something, and in this case, I think it's been the modus operandi of our group to kind of keep people informed and appear occasionally, and kind of let you know what's going on and what's coming down the pike. And tonight, as Tammy had mentioned, we're going to be talking about 3 different development blocks. We're going to be filing an application here probably in the next month or so, and we'll walk through this. But what we wanted to do, especially for some of the newer folks, was just meet, introduce ourselves or reintroduce ourselves, as the case might be, and then also walk through what has been previously approved and what is, what's likely going to be filed. And then to solicit some initial feedback, some thoughts. I want to express my appreciation to Bill Penniman, Michelle Kimmel, Lynn Molston. The 3 of them were able to join us for kind of an in-person preview meeting about 3 weeks ago or so, 2 weeks ago. And it was good seeing everybody there too. I'm going to bring up the slide, and hopefully everyone's going to be able to see it. Okay. So we have the intro slide. So again, my name is Andrew Painter. I'm a zoning attorney at the law firm of Walsh Colucci. And joining us this evening is Bernard Suchasidel. He's a land use planner with my firm. And then we also have Chris Myers with Urban. We have Gregory Ruff with TriPoint, and we have Fred Rothmeyer with MRP Realty. MRP Realty has been serving as the development project manager, assisting the property owner, which is Peter Lawrence Companies, on the redevelopment of this site. And so what I thought I'd do is sort of just, let me just start off here and just sort of acclimate everyone where it is. Most of us know where Isaac Newton Square is. You can see this is now a dated view. You can see where the metro is. And obviously Comstock's project has really been coming out of the ground there at the Wheelie Avenue station. But it provides a good frame of reference for where Isaac Newton Square is. Peter Lawrence Companies owns, and they've spent the better half of the last decade consolidating about 66% of Isaac Newton Square, or 32 acres. And then back in 2010, we had taken through a rezoning of the site to allow the majority of the industrial property converted into a new mixed-use, predominantly residential neighborhood with a focus on open space, and dividing it into 10 pedestrian-friendly development blocks. And so let me sort of pause here. And I'd like to recognize Fred Rothmeyer again with MRP. Again, MRP has been assisting Peter Lawrence Company since its inception on sort of the development of the project. And so Fred, let me stop sharing my screen and just sort of turn it over to you, just sort of a meet and greet so they know who you are.
Yeah, my name is Frederick Rothmeyer, one of the founding principals at MRP Realty. Now been involved, I think, over 10 years with Isaac Newton. Spent a lot of time basically planning this area out. The picture the slide that Andrew had up a moment ago was, I think, from the beginning when we started, and most of the Comstock new buildings that are now almost finished are not even on that slide. But this has been a long time coming. We have gotten approved an infrastructure plan. We are always have anticipated creating a new place here. and doing that with about 4 blocks, such that there's a critical mass and a sense of place day one. If you just do 1 block out of the 10, we believe that will be a major failure. So in order to get the first 4 blocks developed, we have approved now the infrastructure plan that's on the northern half, and we hope to break ground on that infrastructure, which is road and utilities serving the first 4 blocks this coming June. And then by the 3rd quarter of next year, that all should be finished, such that the sites or the blocks can be turned over to its prospective developers. 3 of the blocks are, run by Tri-Point Homes, and we'll present that. And then the N2 block, which is an apartment building of about 340 units, we got zoned through an FDP, I think it was last year, and that should also commence construction at the end of next year. So again, our mission is to get the utility infrastructure in. That's about an $18 million investment by the ownership. And then we anticipate the 4 blocks basically coming out of the ground at the end of next year. So.
Well, thank you, Fred. And I'm going to go back to sort of sharing my screen and walk everybody through what Fred was talking about and what was approved. So again, you can sort of see Isaac Newton Square here. I want to just point out the mature willow oak frame. That was the preservation of those trees was a fundamental part of the driver of the design that was ultimately approved by the Board of Supervisors. So here is the planning efforts over time. So the rezoning that we received approval for back in 2019, October of 2019, that was the rezoning, which rezoned it from industrial to PRM for mixed use development. There was also a conceptual development plan that was approved that I'll show you here in a second. And, you know, in zoning parlance, a conceptual development plan is really kind of just setting the overall conceptual vision for the site and kind of the guardrails within which a developer needs to operate. It sets general expectations as far as streets, where they're going to be located, the key publicly accessible open spaces, the heights, the uses, and the density. The ownership also engaged an arborist to monitor and maintain the willow oak trees, which they've done for the last several years. Shoring them up, making sure they've got enough drip area for water to permeate into the roots, and making sure that ensure the health of the trees. Then, as Fred had also alluded to, in October of 2021, what we need to do with the CDP is then implement the CDP through the FDP. So you have the conceptual development plan that gets approved by the board, and then you realize that conceptual plan by implementing one or more final development plans. So the first final development plan that we received approval for was in October of 2021 for the roads and infrastructure on the northern side of the park, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And that really sort of just divides it up into sort of pad sites that can then be built on and realize the ultimate vision. In October of 2023, about a year and a half ago, as Fred also mentioned, one of the blocks we received approval for a multifamily rental residential project. And so I'll show you what that looks like. And so what we're here today to talk about is to talk about blocks W2, N1, and N3. These are the townhouse blocks. And so we're doing an FDP on 2 of the townhouse blocks, and then we're doing a CDP amendment and a proffer condition amendment to reduce the density on block N3, where a small multifamily project was slated to go, but for reasons we'll talk about, we're needing to shift that to a different product type that's lower in intensity. So this sort of provides an update as to, or sort of an overview as to where things have been. What is on the screen here is the CDP, or an illustrative from the CDP. So again, this is the 2019 rezoning approval, and you can see the division of the park into 10 development blocks, 2.8 million square feet of new development, and 2,100 residential units. I will say that, and it might have been David Vanell who mentioned this to me years ago, that just because you can achieve a maximum intensity with bonus density doesn't mean you necessarily should. So what we did here was we looked at the comp plan. We did not want to be pigheadish about what the comp plan said. We actually proportioned out our portion of the anticipated units under the comp plan based upon our property ownership. And so that's where this 2.8 million square feet of development comes from, and the 2,100 residential units. But I show this to say that, you can sort of see the preservation of the mature willow oak frames. You can see the division of the blocks where the streets are going to run, all in line with the comprehensive plan's recommendations. And it took, as Commissioner Carter knows, it took a very long time to arrive at this, but we wanted to do it right. What's shown on the screen here is the approved concept development plan, okay? And so in these packets that you've received, there's inevitably, and no offense to civil engineers and our civil engineer at Urban, who's done a phenomenal job, but there's inevitably black and white photos that really, these accompany the proffer statements, and this is basically the law of the land as it pertains to a graphic depiction of what is approved. So the CDP establishes your street grid and circulation. It establishes preservation of the willow oak trees, the open spaces that are publicly accessible, the density and the uses. So for each of these blocks, what's in gray are the maximum build to blocks. And you can see if you zoom in, they're coded with what the uses are, what the maximum heights are, et cetera. And then there's a series of salient proffers. We have, 70 some odd or 60 some odd proffers. But the whole goal with this and what the comprehensive plan vision was that this should be a predominantly residential neighborhood that is lower in intensity, and it scales down as you move away from the metro station and the W&OD trail to the north. And the whole concept here is that it's a quieter residential neighborhood that would fuel the need and the desire for retail and commercial uses closer to the Metro Rail station. So when we first started designing the neighborhood, we let our open space and the comprehensive plan street grid sort of guide everything. There is also in the CDP a series of charts, one of which is shown here, which is the preliminary development tabulations. And it shows, breaks everything out by block and building, shows maximum, minimum heights, proposed stories, target residential development, which is what we envisioned at the conceptual level that we would seek. We'd like to have X hundreds, units here, Y thousand, square feet of development. But at the end of the day, if you add up these numbers, they don't all add up. At the end of the day, the bottom number, the total, is what controls. 2,100 units, 2.8 million square feet of uses. And so just to go back to this again, we really let the W&OD trail be the front door of this project. There is a planned later phase athletic field, which was a comprehensive plan requirement at build out. Running east-west, horizontally through the middle of the site is something called the Rain Garden Meander, which will come about when those blocks develop. And that's supposed to be an educational biophilic thing that would capture all the stormwater. Running around the outside perimeter, you'll see a trail next to the golf course and then up north towards the RA property. That's what we call our Nature's Edge Park, where we've programmed in a dog park, a sport court, and a playground. And then you can see Willow Oak Park, which is about a 1.6 acre, rectangular park or square park that goes around where the mature willow oaks are. Alongside the CDP, there were a variety of streetscape activation and stormwater biofiltration, images. And this sort of shows how we wanted to activate the streetscape. We didn't want to have long stretches of nothing going on. We wanted this to be a very active community. And so each of these things is color coded to, should there be Juliet balconies? Should there be stoops? Where's a good idea for the lobbies to be located? And then what's on the right-hand side are the different biophilic elements for stormwater. And then these are the sort of the key open spaces that we honed in on. And how they sort of all relate to each other. It lays out very well from a grid perspective, as you can imagine. But there's a lot of nuances too, and not every block is considered equal and easy to build. But these are sort of the major open spaces here. One of the major open spaces that we'll touch on tonight is the Nature's Edge Park. And this is that perimeter area that runs around and kind of what that view is supposed to look like. And again, you can see the playground in the upper left-hand corner. And then Willow Oak Park. These are the mature willow oak trees. How do we sensitively design a new neighborhood with streets and new buildings? How far away those buildings from the branches? What do we do about people walking on top of the roots? How do we ensure their survivability? So Willow Oak Park again is one of the key features here. And frankly, no other community or neighborhood in Reston that's been recently constructed has anything as majestic as this. And so we're very intent on preserving those. Block N2 is what was approved for the multifamily building. So that was the first vertical construction that was approved back in October of 2023. What we're here to talk about this evening is a forthcoming application or set of applications for blocks W2 and N1, and those are the multifamily buildings. And then block N3 along Wheelie Avenue on the right-hand side of the screen, which is planned for multifamily uses, but we are proposing to do townhomes on that block for a variety of reasons. This is an image from the first FDP that Fred mentioned. This is the infrastructure FDP that was approved back in October of 2021. This again divides the northern portion of this project into separate development blocks to facilitate future development. The construction on this will probably start in earnest sometime in the next 3 months. The ownership will do all of the infrastructure. We are intent on having a consistent streetscape, street furniture. All of that was set with that 2021 FDP. And then, of course, this is what it graphically looked like. So nothing special here, but this is what the limits of the FDP were. And then in October of 2023, this is that block N2 for the multifamily building and what was proposed then. And you can see we were setting forth the first block of Willow Oak Park on the bottom of the screen, on that side of the building. And then on the north side of the building, you can see Nature's Edge Park. And some of the things that we were doing there was a lawn, there was an overlook, a sport court, and really an oversized dog park. All of these will be publicly accessible. And something that we've noticed, and the dog park came out of, the idea for it came out of discussions with P&Z. Namely that there are a lot of multifamily buildings, a lot of new residential growth, but there's no accommodation for dog infrastructure and pet infrastructure. So this is something that we programmed in this portion of Nature's Edge Park. These are images of what Nature's Edge Park, the character and quality of those landscapes that we're looking for. In the upper left-hand side, you can see the dog park. Lower right-hand side or lower left-hand side, you can see the sport court. And then you can see sort of the open lawn area and sort of, again, some of those balconies that come out because we have these streetscape requirements that we'd like to be able to honor. And then along the front of the property, the first stretch of block N2 of Willow Oak Park, and you can sort of see what that would look like, sort of an over, boardwalk area, and then sort of a seating moment as well. There are other plans that we developed over time. Through these processes, you and county staff had brought up things about, things that we hadn't considered that needed to be developed. We delineated where the resource protection area is, so that is checked. We created a tree preservation narrative about what happens and how to care for the trees and what happens if they die. We developed a willow oak replacement narrative. And then we also have a consolidated stormwater approach. And I will tell you, as far as the tree preservation narrative and the willow oak replacement narrative, those are mousetraps, pieces of technology that we developed with the 2021 and 2023 FDPs that we will be replicating and carrying forth and building on for all the future development blocks. It's a good thing that we're doing. Okay, so now that's where sort of coming to the present here. This really is a joint development opportunity for all 4 blocks along the north side to be in place around the same time that the infrastructure is delivered. So there's no interruption in terms of amenity space and things like that. You have the owner, which is Peter Lawrence Companies, working in partner with its master planning process, which is MRP. And now they have selected an experienced developer, TriPoint, who also is the developer of the townhomes that are coming out of the ground at Lake Ann, all working together in a real collaborative manner. And the idea is to accelerate the delivery of this neighborhood. In 2022, we came before P&Z, much like we're doing tonight, to introduce TriPoint and where the project sits. Unfortunately, due to issues in the marketplace, they were not able to move forward. No, we didn't file anything. We kind of just let it sit. But we learned quite a bit from that. So what you see on the left-hand side were at that time, stacked townhouses and townhouses, again, fully in line with the CDP. You can see the playground. On the right-hand side, we were proposing to replace the multifamily building with a series of stacked townhouses. And you can see what that alley would be like, and then the need for driveway spaces, because stacked townhomes only allow 1 car per garage. So this is what we appeared before you with. There was, we learned a lot from that process, general receptivity, but we learned some stuff. And here's what we heard. There was a request to adhere to the proffered architectural design elements and the CDP footprints. Don't push the envelope. Ensure that all the units have doors facing the street. Minimize the asphalt, but at the same time ensure that there's adequate turning movements and dimensions, because sometimes these alleys get built and you're not really thinking about, emergency vehicles or cars turning in and things like that. Give visual importance of the alleys, pay due attention to the rear of the architecture, and then also confirm the interior block dimensions so that there's adequate separation and sunlight. And then the last set of bullet points, make sure that you have Reston-like architecture that provides sufficient visual cohesiveness between the blocks. So on that first bullet point with block N2, where the multifamily building is, we worked hard to make sure that that architecture mimicked a lot of Reston's earliest architecture. And we'll show you how we've done that. But we want to make sure that the other blocks have a cohesive architecture, so it's not visual disjointedness. Second bullet point, ensure that the streetscape elements and the plantings are consistent. Ensure there's building sustainability and efficiency benefits. Ensure garage layout provides sufficient space for trash and recycling cans. Address how the units are going to be parked. And then also address how the HVAC condenser units are going to be shielded at the street level. So a couple of years on, we are back. We are ready to move forward. We are now excited. We've switched up the product just a little bit. It's not stacked townhomes anymore. We're going to be talking about a new product called Back to Back. I'm going to pause here real quick before we go into each block. And I'd like to have Greg Ruff with Tri Pointe just sort of give an introduction to him and his company. So Greg.
Yep, sure. Good evening. I'm Greg Ruff with Tri Pointe Homes. As Andrew mentioned, we've been selected to be the builder here, and we're excited to be able to come in and build the townhomes here at Isaac Newton. My company has been around for about 45 years, working in the DC metro area. For most of that time, you may have known us as Winchester Homes. That was our previous name. About 10 years ago, we were acquired by a company out of California called Tri Pointe Homes, and we continued to operate under the Winchester Homes name for about 7 or 8 years. But about 3 years ago, we changed our name to Tri Pointe Homes to align with our parent company. But you may know us as Winchester Homes. We've built communities and townhomes and single-family homes in Fairfax County for almost 45 years now, and probably in the many hundreds, if not thousands, of homes in Fairfax County. As Andrew mentioned, we're currently building a project or a community down at Lake Ann, 36 townhomes. We're about halfway through that one right now. So again, we're just very excited to be selected to be the builder here at Isaac Newton, and we are designing architecture specifically for this community for Isaac Newton. We've never built it anywhere else before, so we're excited about that. And I think we're going to have some slides that show some of the inspiration that we're drawing from some of the other communities and the other architecture that you see in Reston, both old sections of Reston and then also newer communities that have been built in Reston. So it's nice to see you all again. And we were before you about 3 years ago, as Andrew mentioned, and that one didn't work out, but we're really happy to be back before you again.
Thank you very much, Greg. So again, we're talking about these 3 blocks. As you can see here, block N2, when that was approved, there was a concern that it was sort of isolated, disjointed. Now the benefit of this is that all 4 blocks can be, come out of the ground at relative the same time, as well as the amenities. The open space approach, this is especially true with pedestrian connectivity and open space. And so, we'll sort of rush through this, but Matt with Land Design is here as well to talk through, their overall approach to everything. But you can see here the pedestrian connectivity that will be provided with this that wasn't provided just with Block N2. But then you can also see the approach that we've had, to our open space and what we're doing. There's the publicly accessible open space portion of it, and then there are 2 mews inside 2 of the blocks, which will be privately accessible. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see the 2 purple circles. Those are the entrances to Nature's Edge Park on the top, and then Willow Oak Park. Like, this is how people are going to experience the entrance of this large project. And so special design attention, Matt can speak to this, but special design attention has been paid to both. And then with the change in the use from a multifamily product to something less, we're actually able to reduce the buildable footprint. And we found space along Wheelie Avenue that we can use for a 3rd publicly accessible open space that we hadn't ever contemplated before. What you see on the right-hand side or the left-hand side is the Block N2 multifamily building architecture. And then what you see on the right-hand side is the Block W2, N1, and N3 multifamily or townhouse architecture that's being proposed. Not going to spend too much time on this, but I want to let you know that this has been a very real attempt by us over the past several years to come up with architecture that not only harkens back to some of Reston's earliest buildings, but also responds to more recent things that we think the community has appreciated. We had some slides that we looked at and they're like, oh, don't consider those. Those are bad examples. But what we have here, I think, are some good examples, both interior and exterior spaces that we really like. So Reston Station, obviously Washington Plaza at Lake Anne, Midline, Hickory Cluster, Valiant Park. These are just some of the, flat roofs, colors, that sort of thing. And then we are introducing something called back-to-back units. This is a relatively new product type. And Greg, just in the interest of time, I'll just sort of move through this if I can. This has been built down by the Huntington Metro Station as well as in the city of Alexandria. The ones that are in front of you now are from Eisenhower Point, just west of Old Town. And these are townhomes. Instead of stacked townhomes, which are, vertically, one's on top of the other, these are sort of much more narrow townhomes, in how they're done. And Greg, maybe you should go ahead and talk about this because you'll probably do a better job and more efficient.
Yeah, it's two 4-story townhomes that are joined together at the back and divided by a party wall that runs up vertically between the units, as opposed to a 2-over-2 where you have two units that are separated by a party wall that runs horizontally between the units. So in this case, with a back-to-back unit, you end up with a front unit and a rear unit, but each unit is basically 4 stories tall from the ground, but they do share a garage on the ground level. And as Andrew mentioned before, each unit has a 2-car tandem garage. Therefore, you don't have long driveways like you do with the 2-over-2 units. And there's some other benefits. You don't have one family living over top of the other. You end up with 2 residential units that are comparably priced. The square footages are about the same between the front unit and the rear unit. Unlike a 2-over-2 where you have an upper level unit that's 2,500 square feet over a lower level unit that's about 1,500 square feet. So a great disparity in square footages on a 2-over-2. You don't have that issue here. So we like these. They're very space efficient. They work very well in infill locations, urban infill locations like we have here at Reston at Isaac Newton. And so we've sold them very well. Customers really seem to like them at our project in Alexandria called Eisenhower Point. And if you're curious, you can go on the website, our website, Tri Point Homes, Eisenhower Point, and you can take a virtual tour. There's a lot of pictures. You can actually visit the model if you're interested to see how these units live. But it's a very exciting new housing type that we're starting to build here.
Right, much more eloquent than me. And we also have the floor plans if you'd like to see those. But here they are. And so FDPA for blocks W2 and N1. And then for block N3, this was going to be a multifamily. It was scheduled to be a multifamily building with 180 multifamily units and about 70 feet, minimum height of 70 feet, could go up to more than that. The initial idea for that block was an assisted or independent living facility use or small multifamily use, but sometimes you just cannot build to the density you plan on each of these blocks. So we'll talk through that. What's on the left-hand side is what we came before you in 2022 and we never filed. And what you see on the right-hand side is the revised approach. Looks very similar and frankly looks almost identical to the conceptual development plan that was developed with the CDP back in 2019. These are just some of the images of the muse and taken around these 2 blocks. Again, we wanted to have sufficient sunlight, species that are native, pollinators, that sort of thing. We also drew some inspiration from across Reston about muse that we thought worked well, and then there were some that we kind of shied away from just sort of regionally that we thought were too narrow. And I think many of you guys are probably familiar with Faraday Park and how it's come across. The playground will be delivered with these two blocks, W2 and N1. This is looking north west with the golf course in Hidden Creek in the far background. We really do enjoy those views of the golf course, and I think they add a lot to sort of the open feel of what this area will be. This is looking due west on Isaac Newton Square North. You can see the willow oak trees on the left-hand side, and then you can see the new townhomes on the right-hand side. And then you're looking towards the Hidden Creek Golf Course and that aperture that we just showed with the playground. And this is sort of a closer-up view of that same area. And then this is looking west, straight on down Isaac Newton Square North. So again, trying to create a new neighborhood, urban sort of fabric to it. And then this is block W2, looking at the alley entrance design. We're still working on all of these images, by the way. So by the time that we file something, they will be updated. They will be reflective of whatever it is we end up filing. But what I wanted to show here was the character and quality of the entrance to the alleys, the architecture that we'll be having in the back. I think it's very important to note that with this new product, all of the HVAC condenser units can be moved up to the ceiling. And so we can recapture a lot of the ground level space in these alleys, for other types of things such as plantings and things like that. So this is looking down that same sort of alley. So you're not seeing those water meters or those gas meters, or HVAC units, sort of between these units. We did look at alleys that some of which come across good, some of which come across not as good. This is one alley example that we don't want to mimic. And then we really like this one. It is an alley, can't get around it being an alley, but what does it look like? How does it feel? How does it respond from a pedestrian perspective? And this is much more similar to what we want our alleys to look like in the project. And, my hat's off to both TriPoint for, to their credit for coming up with some of the solutions here, but also to the ownership for making sure that the quality of the architecture and the experience is paramount when they select someone to build these lots. So again, just sort of a graphic image showing this. And then this is showing, looking due north along Isaac Newton Square West towards that aperture. And you can see, again, the preservation of the mature willow oak trees. You'll see the boardwalk as well. There is a proffered requirement that we install anything in Willow Oak Park with a certified arborist, as well as with the Park Authority and the Fairfax County Urban Forestry folks. This is block N3. And this, again, is that small multifamily one. The reason we are switching this, and the same was true a couple of years ago, but there's an added benefit. The reason we're switching this from multifamily to this new product really is the fact that, number one, it's a very small pad. There is a pinch point down in this area, if you can see where my cursor is, near the intersection of Isaac Newton Square North and Wheelie Avenue, that has major utilities, including some vaults, some below-grade electric vaults that serve not only this project, but the vicinity as well, that cannot be moved. We have also the inability to provide sufficient below-grade parking here. And so what we are proposing to do is replace that with, on the right-hand side, 24 back-to-back units, which is the product type that Greg had just mentioned. And so one of the benefits of the revised layout with this, at least, is we are able to shrink our buildable footprint over what was previously approved, as well as what's shown on the left-hand side. Because again, what's on the left-hand side from a few years ago were stacked townhomes with large driveways. We're able to now compress that and give a lot of that space back to both the Willow Oaks to the south and Nature's Edge Park to the north. The other added benefit that you can see along Wheelie Avenue too is additional new green space. And so we are working on programming that. And whether that's for public art or a seating moment, but there are a series of utilities that you can't see here that we have to honor in what we can put there. Just talked about those benefits. This is sort of just a graphic representation of what this space could look like. Again, we're working on the architecture. We're working on what we can do legally, just given the existing easements. Sometimes you can replace the easements. Sometimes you got to live with them. But you can see Wheelie Avenue and the traffic and the cars on the right-hand side. And then again, sort of looking south towards the fire station in the intersection at Sunset Hills Road. I think that's it. So I've talked at length for like 30 straight minutes. I'm sorry. We just wanted to reintroduce the project and the team and just sort of let you know where we're at. I think, Greg, we're looking to submit something hopefully in the next few weeks, depending on how everything gets buttoned up here. But we really appreciate your time on this and happy to take any feedback. We are going to be back before you in a more formal capacity as once we file stuff, once we get staff's initial comments, and but we appreciate your time and any thoughts you may have and you want to pass along to us.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and your team.
Sure.
I have a question that I would just want to clarify for the entire committee. We have some new members. Your ownership does not own the entirety of Isaac Newton Square. So basically the southwest part is owned, and what did we say last time? 29 owners own the rest of the, it was at that one point, quite a few owners, and that would be the existing sports, workshop, or sports, exercise studio, and there's a school. And can you talk a little bit about who those people are and any further talks you've had with them? Or are they still, you're doing your thing and they're going to do their thing when they decide, or what is the update?
Yeah, and Fred, Fred or Mike, I don't know who wants to take that one.
I can do that. So there's various buildings. So the 10 blocks that Andrew was talking about do not include the rendered block, the 3 rendered blocks on the left bottom side of the page. And then you have an aerial photography further to the left. That is the condo office building with a lot of medical providers in there. To the right of that, along the WNOD trail, is the milk producers building. Peter Lawrence was asked by the milk producers to buy them out of that building. They, think it had something to do with the consumption of milk going towards a different product. But anyway, Peter Lawrence stepped up, bought that building. To the north of the milk producers building is the Sport and Health. That building is owned by 2 private individuals. They had approached Peter Lawrence, over a decade ago, to sort of see, what could be done. They had, pretty, I want to say, grand plans, very high density, super high towers. So it really didn't fold together with our views there. And then to the south of the W2 block is a condominium, 1-story condominium building that has, I think it has four tenants in there. There was a kinder care in there. Peter Lawrence was asked to buy that, so they did. So they now own 1/3 of that condominium building. Then there's the church. There's I think 3 other owners still there. And
Fred, can you show with your cursor
Sorry.
where you're,
I think
as
it's right here. Yeah.
yeah, correct. So I think over time, I do believe that most, if not all, the owners that are remaining have an interest to sort of, be bought out. But I think once that time comes, the ownership has been willing to step up and pay, market prices for it. And so far, the people that have sold to Peter Lawrence have been, like I said, the milk producers, and then the kinder care ownership have been very happy with transferring that ownership.
thank you so much. That really helps the committee understand that this, if our drawing on the screen now, if a graphic is shown on the block, you own it, is that correct?
This is a rendered plan. So Fairfax County staff asked us to, yeah, this is the plan and the area that Peter Lawrence controls. So these are the 10 blocks. But
Okay,
then Fairfax County wanted to have a more fully rendered plan to sort of envision when all the components come together, what could that look like? And again, it's highly conceptual, but the major elements of open space, we think those are all there.
okay.
And I
Thank
will
you.
also
That
say,
is very helpful.
and also say too, Madam Vice Chair, that the road that is shown at the bottom of the screen going west, that was at the time on the comprehensive plan. It's since been removed, but this is the
Correct.
graphic from the approval. But obviously, there's no, if we came through for those blocks eventually, or someone comes through, I doubt that road would be shown. So
Correct. Thank you. I was just going to mention that. That road doesn't exist. Okay, great. All righty. Committee, Amy, I think you were first.
All right, great. Thank you very much. So as far as, because I saw that when this was proposed or talked about at different times, one of the concerns that had come up had to do with the amount of parking. And, I looked at, you were talking about the back-to-back townhouses that you have at the Eisenhower property in Alexandria, which could accommodate 4 bedrooms, yet they have 2-car garages. Potentially you have an additional person who needs to park who's living in those townhomes, but then of course you do also have guests. And so I was trying to see and hear where, is this street parking? Is there underground parking for some of these buildings that also includes guest spaces? Just to be able to see exactly, where that parking is going to be allotted, because it just looks like everything's very close together right now.
So Greg, I don't know if you want to take that, but what's interesting is that with the prior plan, when we were proposing 2/2s, and I'm sorry to be rushing through this, when we were proposing 2/2s, we were going to need to seek a parking reduction. And with this new plan, now that we're introducing this product type, we can actually accommodate everything within the blocks. What we are not able to do, though, are some of the visitor spaces. And so along Isaac Newton Square North and Isaac Newton Square West, what's shown here in yellow, pink, and purple and green, are going to be signed designated spaces for overflow parking. I'll also say, too, that we do have over 4,000 parking spaces here that are all privately owned by the Peter Lawrence Company. So there's plenty of room for parking. But Greg, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all.
Or pickleball, as we talked about before.
Pickleball.
Yeah. I think that answers it, Andrew. We have within each land bay, or at least W2 and N1, parking, within the land bay, some visitor parking spots. But in addition to that, out on the street, Isaac Newton North, Isaac Newton West, we have these designated spots that you see in color to be allocated to each of the land bays. So this meets the requirements of Parking Reimagined. And so we think it's sufficient, but as Andrew said, you have plenty in the short term of additional spaces out there.
Amy, is that
Yes.
answering your?
Yeah,
Now-
that was just kind of my question, kind of going of, where, because especially if there's certain areas that you're talking about in the parks are also, the appeal should be there for people who aren't necessarily living within these residences, as they're publicly, will people, if they want to take their dog to a dog park and they live in an area that doesn't have one, how easily will they be able to park and then access things like that?
Good. That's a very good point. I would take that back. Thank you.
Jeremy.
Yeah, so question I had, a couple of questions. One, you showed some images about the alleys and keeping them pretty clean. I think the big difference I noticed between the two is that the alley that you said you didn't want to replicate looked like that was a lot of gas, incoming gas. Are you guys looking at having these units be primarily electric service, or are they going to have gas service as well?
Our intention is to have gas that's typical of what we normally do. Customers do prefer gas for cooktops and so forth, but we have heard that comment. Bill Penniman did mention that a few weeks ago when we met. So we are studying that issue to see what's possible.
Okay.
We do understand that's a concern.
Okay. And then the other one is that with the back-to-back products that I've seen in the past, and I've seen them as old as built in the 80s in Montgomery County.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll see them where they've got a little yard out front that's kind of a utility yard where they keep the air compressor, but that's also where the dumpster and
Mhm.
trash and recycling lives, and then it becomes kind of an eyesore.
Mhm.
I saw that the photos of Eisenhower Point didn't have any of those utility yards out front. I was wondering how you're addressing people's, trash and recycling.
Yeah, trash and recycling will go in the garage, and I think you're probably referring
Okay.
to Montgomery Village,
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah, they've
Yeah,
got
and that
quite a few up there.
yeah, and that project gave back-to-backs a bad name forever, or for at least for 30, 40 years. So this is a whole new breed of back-to-back style townhomes, and
Okay.
it's a lot different than what got built up there.
Okay.
But the idea is for the trash and recycling to go in the garage.
Okay, got it.
Did anyone else have a Def Leppard song playing in their mind a second ago?
Jeremy, is that it for you?
I had some other questions, but you
Please
actually
do.
answered them as you went. Well, they already got answered, so that's
Okay.
great.
I will say one other thing we're trying to do is come up with a better name for this than back-to-backs, and so that's what we call them because that's kind of how they function. But we're still working on that. We've been working on that for a couple of years now.
Better than stacked.
Yeah,
Katie.
I've heard the stacked one's called piggyback, which I think is
Yeah.
kind of cute, but that's not what you're working with here.
We could call them tandem units.
That's true.
Katie, you're up.
Okay, hey, thank you so much. Sorry I missed much of it, but I just want to circle back to parking if we can for a moment. What's your total number of parking spots?
Total within the park is 4,063.
And how many units are we, units total?
Total will be a maximum at build out, if all the units are built, of 2,100.
So that's not even 2 parking spots per unit then? Am I doing
Correct.
the math right?
Yeah, and it depends. I mean, that's right. If you just did it on a straight line calculation like that, that's correct. However, it depends on what the product type that ultimately is built. For example, like with Block N1, we're not able to realize the density, or excuse me, Block N3 along Wheelie Avenue, we're not able to realize the density that we thought we were going to be able to realize on that particular block. It's our intention to recapture that density elsewhere in the project, but I mean, it could be that everything gets de-densified over time. It just
Right.
depends.
I guess my concern, I mean, we all live in Reston, I live in a townhome community and parking is absolutely always a conversation in my HOA. Getting rid of the driveways, you're getting rid of parking, or sometimes if you have a small car, maybe you can stick 3 of them on, you can tandem park on your own driveway. I don't know. I kind of concerned about the parking because if somebody does have a guest or a roommate, third roommate, I just think, I don't know. I think that parking could be a concern, especially being that it's, where, you're gonna have this, field and stuff where people are gonna wanna come over and use it, and it's like, where are they parking? With just however many guest spots that are not under the building. It doesn't like to give very many, pad parking or whatever you wanna call it. I don't know. That's just my feedback. I think you're parking by not having anybody have driveways to park on them to decide how many cars or small, big they want to get on them. And that would just be my my only concern. That's all. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, no, thank you. Greg, do you want to address like the actual parking utilization in this product at all?
No, I mean, you're talking about the back-to-backs?
Yeah.
It just functions like a regular townhouse does. Each unit has 2 garage spaces, and all I can say on that question, I understand the concern. We're meeting the parking reimagined requirements, and for this particular location within walking distance to Metro, we're meeting the intent of the new policy. And as we
And
said,
you're
there's
meeting the market, right, Greg?
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to build these townhouses where people can park. So, the reality is with an apartment building, for instance, the N2 building, that parking ratio will probably be 1.3 per unit. That is market. That is, again, nobody's going to build, $100 million building not having sufficient parking.
And is that open to like public parking? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like, is that just for those people that live there or anybody? Like, if I live in one of the townhomes, I could park there, or my friend could park there, or my contractor, whoever.
On the street, parking will be dedicated for visitors, and then
Only the street parking.
correct.
Well, and then within the land
in-
base, you have additional. Sorry, Fred.
Yeah, in the land base is additional. In N2, there will be visitor parking for that building. So if anybody
Okay.
comes to visit the N2 building, there will be visitor parking there as well.
Okay.
What you don't want to have is people from outside of this new development coming to park and stall their car for the length of time.
Yeah, Greg, this is Chris from Urban. I think one of the things that you pointed out to us when we kind of re-engaged with you on this project earlier this year was with these back-to-back products that you brought to market, are going to be bringing to market. Instead of the 2/2s, there's 62 of those in over these 3 blocks. The benefit of those is you've got 62 additional parking spaces in the garage with these back-to-backs that you didn't have in the stacked townhomes. And so those are 62 parking spaces we didn't have to find elsewhere in the community, that those 62 people aren't fighting for visitor spaces. So that was, to us, really one of the things we saw as a big benefit there, just making parking ratios work, being able to, as Greg said, not have to seek a reduction, but actually being able to go in with a plan that's going to be fully compliant with the Parking Reimagined. And just to sort of close out this, it is a fine needle that we have to thread, because in one sense, the county wants us to reduce parking wherever possible. In the other sense, there is, especially with townhomes, I think it's a very good point that, year 1, it seems fine. By year 5, it's like out of control, and then there's the third part of it, which is market, and what is the market demand. And so we have to sort of thread the needle on all of these, for sure. But I'm writing this down, Amy, and we'll make sure that we consider it with what we end up filing.
Chris, you're up.
Terrific. Thank you. Andrew and team, thank you so much for the very helpful and informative walkthrough, particularly the history. I am new, so that was quite helpful for me. And with that context, could you just do a quick walkthrough on the stormwater biofiltration kind of approach and plan? And the reason for the question, and it may just be that we can jump right to the answer, is as I look at the schematic in the hard copy of the presentation, I'm looking at the biofiltration in the upper right corner between blocks N2 and N3. And relative to other kind of blocks in the space, that doesn't feel adequate. And I suspect that's probably my lack of understanding. So I was just looking for a bit of an explanation about that.
Chris, I don't know if you want to elaborate on it. I'll just say from a high level perspective, all the stormwater was considered in total, like as a whole, obviously. Within each block, we have certain things we have to do. There's certain, biofiltration things, filteras, those sorts of things. With block N2, we worked with county staff on that to make sure that we were addressing it for that block. And there was an additional commitment that we had at time of site plan to work to consider an additional LID measure for that one block. And so I assume that the exact same approach is going to be here. But one thing that we did with the 2021 roads and infrastructure plan was for these 4 blocks to have a consolidated stormwater management approach, so that it serves all 4 of them, which is a benefit from an efficiency perspective. But Chris, I don't know if you want to add.
Let me also say it's pretty unique that you have multiple blocks that you can control. So in a typical development where you have one building, that building basically needs to solve all the retention, detention, and treatment in its site. What we did, we recognized that we have a unique situation where we can do this as a master planned thing, and we did this in Noma in an area of Washington D.C. where we jointly, we joined as a business improvement district and said, the best way to treat this is to do a master plan. So that is what we did as part of the CDD2. Then on the streetscape, there's LID tree wells that collect water. So wherever we could, we're doing all these features.
Right.
And so I think it's a unique approach. It has been done in Noma first. That was started, I think, 15 years ago. And now we're doing it again. So if you look at lead type approach, this is really a high-end lead approach to do it as a master plan.
Terrific. That's helpful. Thank you so much. That's all I had, Tammy.
Okay, I don't see other hands. Is anyone else on the committee have a question?
Tammy, this is Sue Straits.
Sure.
Yes, regarding Reston like architecture, because the back-to-back townhomes is rather new to Reston, have you already run this by a DRB, or are you planning to do that in the near future?
We have not gone to DRB. So this is not subject to the deed of declaration. But we do have a proffered commitment that we will run the architecture by DRB for their input. We did that with block N2. We fully intend to do that with these 3 blocks as well, Sue. And so that we haven't filed anything yet. So we're not there yet. But
okay, that's great. And regarding parking and comments on that, I tend to be with the county and favor reducing parking, not increasing parking. This development is within a quarter of a mile of a metro station, and it's adjacent to OD trail for walking and biking. So just to give my opinion on that.
Thank you.
And on the tree preservation, I noticed you talked about a possible tree replacement plan. For tree preservation, I'm not sure who you are working with, but
So I think we may have lost you.
Sue, you're on mute.
I'm unmuting it and then it's going back to mute. Regarding tree preservation, typically, for a willow that may be 30 inches wide in diameter, you take that times 0.9, so that would be 27 feet, meaning that within 27 feet of that willow tree, you would not want any trenches, utility lines, sidewalks, or parking spaces. So, I'm not sure who you are working with, but, just to really, I would appreciate focusing on tree preservation. And it's great to have a possible tree replacement plan, but the tree preservation should take priority.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Sue. And just to let you know, as far as the parking, that's the reason why we don't have parking on the outer perimeter, like adjacent to those blocks. We don't want, that's why we don't have on-street parking. We have there, but then we've also been working with the care of trees and over the past couple of years on that, and with block N2 we were able to push back the building envelope and provide additional space for the trees. What's interesting is, and very interesting, and Tammy probably remembers this too, but there's a disconnect in the county staff, or a disagreement about the need to preserve those trees versus just getting rid of them and envisioning a more urban kind of thing where things are pushed up closer to the street. And Fred, I think it's pretty fair to say that ownership has held the line on that. And we said, if you want to get rid of those trees, you all go talk to the community, because we're not doing that. Like, we believe in the benefit of preserving these trees. How could you not? And it's,
we've worked with arborists to make sure that everything that we're planning puts the puts the life and survivability of these trees first. So we've pulled all the utilities away from the trees. We've been pulling N2 away from the trees. We're trying to pull N3 away from the trees. We're pulling the road away from the N1 side. So, is there a possibility that a tree would die? Yes, but that's why we have the replacement plan. But we have done a lot to plan for the survivability, and we also have been treating these trees in the last 3 years to get them in tip-top shape. So we have had arborists come out and making sure that these trees are went to the sport and health of trees to get them fit and ready for the work that's coming.
Okay, great. And then lastly, public art. I noticed you listed public art, and that's great. It should be an integral part of your development plan, not simply an afterthought. So do work with Reston Art on that. And that's,
Oh yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sue. Yes.
that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
done.
we will. And just on that, there is a graphic that shows potential locations for public art.
Mhm.
We have also, and so we thought about that during the CDP process. Now with that new wayside, what we're calling the wayside on Block N3 along Willie Avenue, that's one location, one potential location that we think would get a lot of views and traffic. That we haven't fully designed that yet, but that's one location that we're thinking that it could be good. And I did run into an IPAR or Public Art Reston representative on Friday and let her know that we're going to be coming in here pretty soon, having a conversation with her.
Okay, great to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Super. Next, let's see, Andy. You're
Hi,
up.
everyone. I also had a question about well, I guess more of a concern with the willow oak trees. There's already buildings behind N1 and N2, and I'm just having a hard time seeing how many of those won't get destroyed or accidentally bumped into not only in the demolition, but in the construction of these new buildings. I almost feel like there should be like a mini stormwater management similar to the middle to be a buffer north of the trees and south of the N1, N2, and N3. Trees, they of course host a bunch of biodiversity. I don't recall right now, but I'm pretty sure a bunch of caterpillars and stuff growing those trees. We don't only want them to be ornamental, we want them to be able to support the life that they can. So I think there should be a consideration for another stormwater management that will also make it much safer for these trees to, again, not be demolished or not be destroyed in the demolishing or in the construction of these new buildings. Is there a particular reason why the stormwater management is in the middle?
Well, there's stormwater management within each of the blocks, but there is a big stormwater management sort of gully that we have running in the middle. But there's stormwater management for each of these blocks that we have to satisfy. I'll also say too, these buildings have been demolished where they're going, and then we have been required to pull off, as part of the CDP, our build to lines, and as Fred mentioned, in some cases the roads, the curb, moving them away from the trees. And we've been working with the urban forester on this from day one. But Chris, I don't know, Fred, if you want to say anything else about that.
I'm assuming you were referring to the middle, sort of what we call the rain garden meander. Is that what you're worried about?
Yes, I was curious why that was selected there.
So it's what it does. It will collect the rain from the buildings that abut those areas. So it's not our goal or our intent to cut the willow oaks away from where they are. We will find a pathway. It is sort of a meander that you can walk through as the yellow pathway shows the meander. We'll find the right spot to meander past these trees as well. So, yes, it will require us to be focused on the details, and that's what we have done with everything so far. So we understand what the mission is, and we're doing our damnedest to achieve the mission.
Andy, is that the end of your question, or do you have a comment?
Sorry, I disconnected. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that response. I also noticed you all mentioned that WNOD was used kind of as a guide, but I didn't really hear or see any pictures of like any dedicated bike lanes except for the Nature's Edge. Is everything else just like a regular pedestrian sidewalk, or can there be an exploration for more dedicated bike lanes so that people are more inclined to bike to the trail or to bike to the metro or to bike to the other trails? I think there's a good opportunity here since it's so close to the metro, as other people have said, to use other forms of transportation and making it much easier, convenient, and safe for people to bike. Is there any plan for bike lanes or protected bike lanes?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, and Fred, but not within the project, not within these streets. These are neighborhood sized streets. They're not overly sized like what I think Reston Station Boulevard is, as far as being very wide. These are much more intimate streets, and they are, I think we have designated them as shared streets. So that's our approach here. But Chris, I don't know if you don't know the answer, we can get it later.
Yeah, that's generally correct. The trails around the perimeter, Nature's Edge Park, is it's a pedestrian plaza. It's not intended for bikes. We want that to be pedestrian friendly and walkable, and not have the conflicts with bikes and pedestrians. Whereas in the streets, like Andrew said, they're really it's a shared street concept there. That's the way that people would bike to and from their blocks and then down to the metro.
And we are widening along Wheelie. That's a multi-use path. So these blocks would funnel towards the Wheelie side, and then pedestrians and bikers would take that trail that we're installing along Wheelie to the metro. So
that's right, Fred. And Block N3 will actually Block N3 won't, but the infrastructure plan will actually propose the first piece of that there adjacent to N3.
Yep.
Andy, is that it? Okay, I think we may have lost Andy. Andy, are you there?
Sorry. Yeah, I need to fix my Wi-Fi. Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to emphasize that if it is going to be shared, just think about families and thinking if you want your kids to bike there. I just think some safe bike lanes are super important. And then just lastly, I want to echo what other people mentioned. I think this is a great opportunity to have less parking. Since it's so close to the metro, we want to incline people to take public transit, use the WNOD trail, because all of suburbia is already very dependent on cars because we provide all of that car convenience. So let's balance it out with more walking, more biking, more public transit use. So I think this is a great infill development opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're gonna, Jeremy, you've already asked a question, so I'm gonna skip to Lynn and Michelle and then come back and catch on you. Lynn?
Thank you, Tammy. First, on behalf of the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee, I want to thank Andrew and this team for coming back to us and providing us with a sneak peek, so to speak, of their presentation tonight. I really appreciated it. And I just want to reiterate the importance of Reston Association membership for the residences in this development. You know, I understand that there were, some recommendations that were put forth by Mr. Penniman in terms of the benefits of having heat pumps and all electric. But, I really do think that it is up to TriPoint and the developer to understand their market and to provide what their target market is interested in terms of purchasing. If Mr. Penniman is able to put forth a recommendation for heat pumps and all electric, then I would like to speak on behalf of William Peggy's and say that we should have green roofs. So there we have it.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you too
Okay.
from me.
Michelle.
Sure. Sorry about that. A little delay there. I want to also thank you guys for speaking with us ahead of filing. I know for a lot of folks involved in this, that's something we've been hoping for a while. And so it's really great to see in action that you're engaging the community at an earlier stage. So thank you very much. Let's see. To follow up on a few things that I had asked in the smaller meeting, do you have an update on the grocery store that Comstock announced that they'll be building?
I do not. Fred, I don't know if you've got anything, but no, I do not.
Okay.
I have not. I thought you were going to be jumping on that, Andrew.
Sorry, no.
Didn't. I was just kidding. I can ask Chris. I can reach out to Chris Clementi and see what Comstock is up to.
I think that would be good because, as we've pointed out previously, and then also more recently, not having a grocery store and walking distance is going to be a significant problem when we're looking at adding a lot of density. As we all know, we have Whole Foods right now, but that's moving to the old Best Buy. And so really your only options are going to be the 7-Eleven and CVS. So if we really want to make this a walkable, livable neighborhood, we have to have access to groceries. So I recognize that there's only so much you as one individual group can do, but you own a lot of property here. So we're going to have a solution if Comstock is delayed. Have you started your conversations with RA about membership?
We have not. We did meet with them a couple of years ago, I think, when Mac had started there. So no, that's on our list of things to do as well.
Okay. Mr. Penniman also brought up the idea about a trail connection, I believe, on the northeast area. Were you able to look into that? I think that's where it was. But
yeah, no, it's not on the property. It's off-site, and it's on the east side of Wheelie Avenue. It would be on property that Reston Association owns. And I think we've started looking at that, Greg. But we haven't come to any formal conclusion about if a trail could be built, what VDOT would require, whether Reston Association would be in favor of it. It's a comment that we're taking back. So we have nothing else to report on that tonight.
Okay. I hope you really will pursue that and include that in your conversations with RA that I hope pick up again very soon. So let's see. My other question is, where would a school bus be able to come on property, or are they picking up all the kids directly on Wheelie?
Well, right now, Fairfax County school buses would certainly be able to come onto the property. The roads that you see here are comprehensive plan grid roads, so they are going to be open to the public. And it just depends on how Fairfax County Public Schools routes its buses. That's not something that we control. But maybe they would pick them up on Wheelie, or they would come into the property. I would imagine as the project builds out, they're probably looking at coming into the property because that's where the vast majority of the students would be.
Yeah, the only clarification I would add, Andrew, is that they will not come into the blocks themselves. They won't navigate through the alleys in W2 and N1, but they'll have access to the Isaac Newton Square streets.
Okay, great. As you're working on this, to the extent that you can reach out to Fairfax County Public Schools and think that through, I think that would be really beneficial. We see, a lot of times where kids are on very busy roads, and there are a lot of kids standing there. So it would be great if we could get that worked out and also think through where they would be, where they would congregate, and if there were any, amenities that could be provided there, to protect them from the weather, rain, heat, snow. And then as far as a public bus, would it come? Do you have any plans for a public bus entering, or no, that would just stay on Wheelie and Sunrise?
That's probably just going to stay on Wheelie and Sunrise, but that's up to, again, these are things that, over time, and we're talking 15 years from now, when some of these southern blocks would be built, that would be up to the bus operators, whether it's Ferris Connector or One Auto or Ribs or whatever it happens to be.
Sure. All right. Well, I hope you will communicate with FCPS because if these are the properties that are moving forward, that's where we're going to see the kids. So it would be great to make sure that they're as safe as possible. I think this is great that hopefully all 4 blocks will come online at the same time. And so then they have access to both sets of parks. So I'm happy to see this moving forward as a group and hope that that continues. As some have also said, I mean, I think the parking you're providing is great. I think there are some Reston clusters that don't even provide 2 parking spots per townhome. So this looks pretty great. And the goal is that it's not going to be generating a lot of car use. At least that's the hope, right? So that's all I have. I hope next time you guys come back, you can have some additional updates, especially as we're looking out at how does this really look once these are built? What is the day-to-day life? Are you able to fulfill that goal of really walking as much as possible? So that's what I've got. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Tammy, could I just interject one of the answers to Michelle's questions? Thank you, Chris Dabity. She said to confirm this, but here's what's online. Comstock planning to build a fresh market ground floor at Midline at Reston Station, mid-2026 target delivery date.
Thanks, Lynn. That is the information I also had.
Yeah, I was
Thank
just,
you.
when we spoke last time, I was just hoping they could follow up and see if anything's changed or if that's still the target, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and Michelle, you are so on point. That was that fresh, what is it? Fresh, whatever it is, that was publicized at least over a year ago. So heaven knows what grocery health, company health is at this point. So super important. Thank you. Jeremy, thank you for your patience.
Jeremy, you're muted.
I'm muted. Thank you. So I know today's presentation is about the W2, N1, and N3, but as far as the rest of the development, are you looking at bringing any retail into those multifamily blocks, even if it's small retail like coffee shops or other just local amenities?
The retail blocks are down at Isaac Newton Square South, so down where the gas station is and where the fire station is. Those will be the later blocks that are developed. We are starting at the top and then working our way down. And the reason for that was because the buildings that were up top were in the worst condition, had the most deferred maintenance, and we consolidated as many leases as we could to push it down towards the bottom there. But there will be where the athletic field is, that will be the sort of the main street of the project when it is eventually built out. And those buildings.
And in the interim, there's a building in the center where Reston Association originally was, that has a deli in there. That's still open.
Yes.
So for the time being, having more people live there will benefit that deli, because I understand that they're struggling a bit.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, any more committee members with questions? Seeing no one. John Carter, do you have any comments?
I don't have any comments at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate. I had one quick question, and it's a practical one. What is the plan for prohibiting Metro parkers from coming in and parking on the new streets once you get your buildings up? Will it be a placard system, or have you thought about that? You're so
Right,
close to Metro.
Yeah, I gotta defer. I mean, not only is it so close to Metro, it's not like we can just have gates and stuff, like mass turns. I mean, it's so porous. And I don't know, Fred, if ownership has seen an issue with that now or at this point. But I don't know if they thought about it as being a big issue yet. But
Andrew, this is Mike Staley with
Hey,
Peter
Mike.
Lawrence. I can speak on that. We had an issue when Metro first opened, but we were pretty aggressive with towing, and word hit the street pretty quick. And really since then, we've had no issue at all. So it's one of those things that we'll continuously monitor, if we need to. And generally, once you start towing for a day or two, and we set eyes on people that park there and walk to the Metro, word spreads pretty quickly and the issue goes away. So.
Thank you. I love that. That's terrific. All righty. Anyone else? Final chance. Okie dokie. Thank you so much for coming and letting us, comment. We're so grateful for that. To reiterate, the more greenery and shrubs and nature that we can have in these buildings is so important. We have a couple of tall oaks is a terrible example of so few trees and greenery, and it's a shame. And your willow oaks, thank you for preserving those treasures. So we certainly appreciate that. I didn't ask about what is the replacement if one or two or more die. Can you go over that real quick?
Chris, I don't know if you've got that there. I think it's a 1-for-1 replacement.
I believe you're right. I don't have it right in front of me, Andrew, but that's my understanding as well.
Okay,
when
but
we come back to you, we'll get you those details.
Okay, is it the caliper? Is it going to be the twigs or substantial bigger trees, or do you know?
Chris,
something in between. I think obviously that we can't plant a tree to rival or compare what's there today.
Of course
not. Be a big loss, of course. But they won't be a little whip. It won't be a little seedling that's an inch in diameter. There's a requirement for it to be more substantial than that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. One last question. This has come up before. Doesn't Fairfax have a requirement for a backyard, 200 square feet of privately fenced space? How are you getting around that? Because I don't see it on your plans.
Would that be for a front garage townhome? I believe we're doing all rear garage townhomes here.
I think I brought this up at our preliminary meeting, if you recall, Greg.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all or not, but what I would say is typically for this type of product in a more urban environment where you're back to back or typically stacked, because as Greg said, this is sort of the first new back to back product that's been brought to market here in this area. That requirement is typically modified as part of the zoning, with the justification that there's publicly available space so close as part of these P district communities that the recreation or the outdoor activity is a community space, not just individual within, you know, a 200 square foot privacy yard.
Well, but to go to the point, people store their bikes in there. So is there room in the garage for 2 cars, trash and recycling plus bicycles?
And
They
Greg,
get your car
yeah,
doors open?
probably a typical that we can show at some point that
Yeah.
shows everything can be stored in there.
We'll look
Yeah,
at
I
that.
mean,
Yep.
people are crazy to have their bicycles. Lynn, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did, Tammy. Thank you for recognizing me. So I guess my question is it the applicant's intent to bring forth a modification or an exception to remove that? Because that is part of the zoning.
It is. And those, that is typically requested with urban style rear load townhouses. And so I think we're going through our design right now, and it would be one of a number of modifications that inevitably we have to request.
Well, if you could incorporate it or a portion of it, it would be advantageous.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, and my apologies. I thought that requirement only applied to front loaded units. I didn't realize it also applied to rear.
It's
So,
zoning.
okay. So we'll need to
Yeah.
ask for that modification.
Thank you,
or
Greg.
waiver. Yep.
Okay. And I certainly appreciate that. I do want to make one personal comment. Recently, we switched from a high-end gas cooktop to a high-end induction top to get rid of the gas fumes. And I cannot tell you how much we love the electric induction. I know that's anathema to gourmet cooks who think gas is the only thing, but wow, that the induction is clean, easy to clean, and super fast and super controllable. So I think it's a matter of getting used to a new method. But anyway, thank you for your presentation. Certainly appreciate it. And we'll let you go.
Right.
Actually,
Thank you
all of
all.
the major chefs around the country put induction above gas.
Thanks, William.
My cooking lately has been DoorDash, so I don't know what they're using for that.
Yeah, they're even making lower cost versions of small sizes that would be like the size that you would put into a townhouse, meaning it's the minimal width. And I have one, and it's a 5-burner system, and also the oven is actually a convection oven that came with it. So it's a range. So it's easily affordable. It didn't cost any more than you would buy for the same size unit of a gas.
Thank you very
Less,
much, William.
actually.
All right, now we've had the lobby for induction.
Right.
All righty. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Appreciate you coming and speaking to us. So it's 9 o'clock. We'll let you go, and we'll move our meeting into administrative. And at this point, thank you. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Oh, good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
All righty. And
I think, Tammy, at this point, we're going to ask anyone who is on the call, who is not a member of the committee, to please disconnect. And there may be
Well,
a
I'd like,
possibility.
in that vein, Lynn, can we just move to go to executive session that accomplishes the same thing?
thank you. So
Well,
moved.
there are people that are on the call that are not part of the committee that are still in the call. So I
Yeah.
would like them to
Who's
leave
that?
or
Read AI meeting notes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we go to executive session, then they have to sign off.
Okay.
well, we have people
They're
here
not.
that are not part of the committee that are still on the call.
I think Read.ai is a service that Mike Sale, one of the applicants' representatives, turned on. I noticed that in the chat. There is an option to turn it off. And look,
Yeah, I was able to just remove that.
Okay. And
Other-
Jennifer, just check. Can you please disconnect?